What you know, alibiers, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It is Sunday, January 5th. Hope y'all have had a good weekend. I've been taking care of my grandma who's sick. My daughter's now sick and my throat's feeling a little funky. So I thought I better push out episode 2 on the backstory of the Rose Petal murder. Just a reminder, a week from tomorrow, January 13th, this goes to trial. I'll be in there every day, and I'm trying to find out if it's going to be live streamed. As soon as I find out, I'll let you know. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe and like the video. It helps push my channel out to people who may not know I exist. So thanks for doing that. Let's jump in, and I've had a lot of people inbox me and ask, does John Mello have custody of his daughter still? And the answer is yes, he does. We're going to talk about the day before and the day of the murder before we go deeper into the connection between Zachary Hughes and John Mello. October 12th of 2021, the day before the murder. Flock cameras, which are really license plate readers, they showed the defendant's truck, which is a gold Ford Ranger, with a bicycle in the bed of the truck. On the day of the murder, October 13th of 2021, at 9:07 a.m., a Ring camera from a neighbor across the street shows Christina entering the home. That was verified by her fiancé, Bradley Post's Life 360 app, which confirmed her arrival time. At 9:15 a.m., the same camera shows an individual entering her home. He arrived on a bicycle going into the front door and was dressed in a black hoodie with a backpack on. The bicycle matched the one seen on that Flock camera the day before. At 9:27 a.m., the suspect was seen leaving the neighborhood on the same bike. He had the same clothing on, but had an N95 mask on, and he had the hoodie up over his head. Again, Flock cameras in Greenville caught the suspect on video with the same bicycle in the back of that gold Ford Ranger truck, just like the one Zachary Hughes owns. Now, his attorney said the video doesn't show Zach. If you're looking on YouTube, this is a photo from that Ring camera. So it's all dark. You can't see a face. And that's your defense attorney doing their job. We talked yesterday about how Bradley Post couldn't get in touch with Christina. He went to the house and found her. Deputies responded at 11:08 a.m. When they arrived, Post was outside talking on the phone when a deputy approached him. And when the deputy tried to ask Post questions, he instructed the deputy to wait as he continued to talk on the phone. The deputy said Post was shaking a little bit, but didn't seem too upset. When Post hung up the phone, he told the deputy he decided to come to the house when he called his fiancée, Christina, and she didn't answer. He went in through a back door, which he said was usually kept unlocked, and that's when he found Christina's body. Police went inside and did a sweep of the residence just to be sure nobody else was inside, and went back out to talk to Post to continue the investigation. And during that interview, Post became nervous and asked if he needed to speak with his lawyer, despite the fact the deputy was asking very basic questions. Post did give law enforcement the name of someone he thought may be responsible, and that was not Zachary Hughes. The police asked Post to accompany them while they searched the house, and strangely, Post wore gloves. What evidence was found in the home? They found memory cards, a laptop, a cell phone in the living room near Christina's body. Also in the living room was a clear Ziploc with a white powdery substance that turned out to be cocaine. There was also dried blood on that Ziploc. I just want to take a moment to note here that during autopsy, there was no cocaine found in Christine's body. On the table near the hallway of the living room, they found Christina's purse, which had 2 envelopes, and inside each of the envelopes was $500 cash. In a back room, investigators found a single-shot firearm, which was in a bag that was inside a suitcase. In Christina's bedroom, there were documents regarding the ongoing custody battle with John Mello, as well as numerous USB drives. The sheets on Christina's bed had blood on them, and blood was found in other areas of the home. They sprayed Blue Star, which showed a reaction for blood in the bathroom. After evidence from the autopsy was processed, they did find that Zach's DNA was found under one of Christina's fingernails from her right hand. The match was 825 million times more likely to be from Zach than a random unrelated individual. That bike was later located at the residence Zach was staying at while the search warrant was being executed on the property. A resident of the house said the bike was Zach's and it had recently been moved, but prior to that, it had not been used in a long time. Zach's DNA was also found on the bicycle. During the execution of the search warrant, they found his phone and obtained a separate search warrant for that, which would later become a battle in court to obtain the 6-digit passcode to unlock the phone. Now, we learned about the events leading up to Zach's arrest from his bond hearing. His attorney focused on Zach's behavior since the prosecution began when he was arguing to let Zach out on bond. And he said, put simply, everything he has done since police obtained his arrest warrants have been the actions of an innocent man. At the time police obtained arrest warrants, Zach had been hired to perform for an international cruise line, and while he was in Detroit waiting to board a flight for Europe the next day, he was informed there was a warrant for his arrest. From his location, he could see the American-Canadian border and literally could have walked into Canada or could have boarded his plane to Europe the next day. Had he left, it would have been difficult to facilitate his return to the United States, especially if he traveled to a non-extradition country. But he didn't leave. He told his attorneys he would return to Greenville and stand trial, which he did. He rented a car in Detroit and drove to Greenville directly and turned himself into the Greenville County Sheriff's Office November 3rd, 2021, where he was arrested for Christina's murder. 13th Circuit Solicitor Walt Wilkins told the judge in the case the premeditation, calculation, and planning that had to go into this crime was pretty impeccable. Now, a few days after Christina's murder, her fiancé, Bradley Post, was interviewed again by law enforcement. In the interview, he refused to answer multiple questions and refused to give the investigator the PIN number for Christina's phone until he could get advice from his lawyer. Major red flag, and now we know why, because of what they found on these devices. What about motive? Solicitor Wilkins told the court that Christina was in a bitter custody battle that began in 2016 with John Mello, the father of their daughter. Again, a reminder, Mello has not been charged in any way regarding Christina's murder, and neither has Bradley Post. Before we get into what we know about communications between Zach and Mello, let's go over the drama surrounding Zach's phone, which was confiscated during that search warrant of the home he was staying at. After his arrest, Zach refused to give the investigators the passcode to his phone. Of course, they wanted it because it would give geolocation data showing his locations if he had that enabled, as well as any access to messages related to the murder. And without his consent, they estimated it would take as long as 3 years and 9 months for their software to break the passcode to the phone. But they were able to extract some data even without the passcode. They did get some WhatsApp messages between Zach and Mello. There was geolocation from Google showing the location of the iPhone at certain times, photos, text messages, emails, and data showing when the phone had been turned off or placed in airplane mode. Zach put his phone in airplane mode 2 times the day before Christina's murder, which would be October 12th, 2 times on the day of the murder, which is October 13th, and 1 time on October 19th, which is 6 days after her murder. The messages investigators retrieved were scrambled, and when they say scrambled, it is like a word salad. The text message is there, but the words aren't in order. It's almost like putting together a puzzle. I have an example of that on the screen here. Between the two, they're said to be around 1,769 messages they exchanged. They did find numerous conversations between the two via WhatsApp between October 8th and the day of the murder, October 13th, 2021. In one exchange on the day of the murder, Mello asked Zach, "How did the music research go?" And Zach replied, "Good. I'll tell you over the phone." A circuit court judge did order Zach to provide the passcode. And on April 6th of 2023, prosecutors filed criminal contempt charges against Zach. Zach said he couldn't remember the passcode. He thought it was a combination of his birthday and Beethoven's birth and death years. Now, the information Zach provided did not unlock the phone, and it took law enforcement more than 670,000 attempts to crack it. Solicitor Walt Wilkins said, "As you can imagine, with Mr. Hughes's renowned piano playing skills, I find it difficult to believe he can't remember 6 sequential numbers." Just a reminder, Zach memorized all 32 of Beethoven's sonatas. That was 600 pages of sheet music. Zach's father also said he wasn't able to remember passwords that his dad requested from him, such as one for the cell phone plan or one for a bill that was continually being drafted from his bank account, even though he was incarcerated. In the end, the court did not find that Hughes intentionally withheld that passcode, and the state's motion for contempt was denied. But they did unlock that device a couple of weeks later, but there were a lot of messages they couldn't access between Zach and Mello. WhatsApp is hard. We see WhatsApp used in a lot of these criminal cases we cover. It's encrypted. It's even harder if the messages have been deleted. So who knows what was lost on those messages. But what do we know about Mello and Zach? We know they seem to be good friends. Zach started working for Mello from at least 2020 through 2021. He cleaned his house and did some other odd jobs. Mello, as we know, is a music producer, and with Zach's background, it seems that might be the big thing they had in common was the music. In one message, Mello told Zach he had found Christina's private phone number and asked Zach to harass the crap out of her. On the last episode, we talked about Mello being arrested 8 days after the murder on October 21st of 21 for custodial interference due to him taking their daughter to Italy. Mello listed Zach as the one who could pick up his belongings from the airport in Charlotte after his arrest. Zach was also the only family member Mello put down when he was in jail, so they were able to communicate while Mello was incarcerated. They also created an iPhone video with Mello giving Zach the rights to pick up his luggage and medication from the Charlotte airport after his arrest. We talked about how the custodial interference trial ended with the judge dismissing the charges since Mello was the sole custodian of their daughter. Fast forward to September 14th of 2023. Mello was arrested. Now, Zach was already in jail. He was served there. What for? They both were charged with first-degree harassment and criminal conspiracy. Investigators uncovered evidence beginning back in June of 2021, connecting both the men to a pattern of harassment and emotional distress inflicted on Christina. They were in bond court together. First time they had seen each other in quite a while. I have some footage of that up on YouTube now. I watched that hearing and made some notes, so let's go through what was said. The prosecutor said Christina reported a harassment issue in July of 2021 to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. The prosecution mentions to the judge the custody battle, and at this time, that custodial interference case was still pending. Investigators found a message that was sent through WhatsApp from Mello to Zach on April 17th of 2021 saying, "Harass the crap out of her." On May 16th of 2021, an email sent from Mello to Hughes contained pornographic photos of Christina, and the URL from each of the photos where they originated from was from a pornographic website. Then on June 30th of 2021 and July 17th of 2021, packages were sent from Greenville to several recipients with the same images and that same URL as the ones Mello emailed to Hughes. In between those Greenville dates on July 8th, packages were also sent from Knoxville, Tennessee with the same contents. The recipients of these packages were Bradley Post, Christina's fiancé, neighbors of Christina's, and also Christina's father at his place of business. Cell phone location from Zach's phone put him in Greenville as well as Knoxville on the days these packages were sent. Speaking of Mello, the prosecutor said as a result of the pending custodial interference case, his passport was in the custody of family court. He says that Mello is a dual citizen of the U.S. and Italy and requested if he got bond, his passport stay relinquished to law enforcement while that matter is pending because he would be an extreme flight risk, since he has said he intends to return to Italy as soon as he's able to do so. Hughes' attorney said Zach is in jail with no bond. He also says Zach is no danger to the community. He has no criminal history. He's been a productive member of society, and that these are only allegations. He also mentions Zach served in the military and says he isn't a flight risk. He wasn't going anywhere, but defense attorneys got to defend. He also pointed out when Zach found out he had a murder charge, law enforcement did not know where he was, but rented that car and drove back to Greenville to turn himself in, knowing that could mean life in prison. At this point, the judge said the victim's family could speak out if they wanted before she set bond, and Christina's sister did. She held up a photo from Mello's Instagram with him and Zach and tells Zach a week later he posted the same photo, but you were cut out of it. He cut you out. She said she's going to give that photo to Zach's attorney in case he wants to see it a little more closely. Just because I feel like it's important for you to know that that's happening. I don't know that anyone's actually brought that to your attention. The images that were sent to our neighbors, remember, Christina lived with her sister. Our next door neighbors have a 6 and a 9-year-old. The neighbors across the street have a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a toddler. They received these photos. This loving father sent pornographic images to people where any child could have gotten them, with utter disregard for any harm he was causing the mother of his child. His child could have found them, her friends could have found them, and he did it anyways. Utterly callous, and based on lack of eye contact, I would assume no regret. Totally see what she might have been trying to do there. I think she was trying to get to Zach there with that Instagram post and showing the different ones, maybe trying to coerce him into talking if he knew something, but to this day, didn't work if that was the goal. The judge asks Zach his date of birth. She recites the charges and says that they're misdemeanors and they will set the bond at $5,000 per charge, cash or surety, but with a no bond for the murder charge, he was sent on his way. She then speaks to Mello and asks his date of birth. The judge said she honors the state's request about his passport, and if family court drops his case, he is to surrender that passport to law enforcement. He got a $10,000 bond for the harassment and $5,000 for conspiracy. Mello spoke out saying that he didn't have an attorney, and then he began speaking about the allegations, saying the mail was sent from Greenville and Knoxville, but then the judge interrupts and said, "We're not here to hash this out. It's a bond hearing and guilt or innocence isn't going to be discussed here." And Mello said he understood. He did bond out and is still currently out on bond. That has not gone to trial yet. Mello's attorney subpoenaed Bradley Post to testify at the custody interference trial that ultimately ended with the charges being dropped, but Post invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, and his attorney says he will continue to do so until his charges are resolved. Zach's trial, again, set to begin 1 week from tomorrow. And on the last episode of this backstory, we're going to talk about one huge issue that still has to be resolved. Prosecutors want to keep the child sex abuse material out of Zach's trial for very obvious reasons, as you can imagine. Adults do not take kindly to people who do things like this to innocent children, and it really could railroad their murder case. I've seen it in comments on my first episode. I've seen it in comments from the time this was revealed a couple of years ago. Some people feel she is less of a victim due to her participation in the child sex abuse material. On the other hand, of course, the defense wants this to come in. Their job is to get their client off, to get their client out, free, back in the world. And this is a very, very unique case. And then you have the whole issue of Bradley Post testifying at this trial. He found her body. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens, but the prosecution has a huge elephant in the room with everything that's come out since she was murdered. If that ruling comes down this week, I will likely do a YouTube short on that. So if you want notifications and you're subscribed, hit that little bell icon. It'll let you know whenever I post new content. So the next episode will go through these filings of what the prosecution is saying as far as why they don't want this in, and we'll go through the defense's response as to why they want it in. There's a lot of stuff going on still, but this trial is going to be very interesting to say the least. So that's it for this episode. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.